Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm so happy that you are here joining us because we have a great webinar and Q&A. And I am Dr. Liz Slonena. I'm an ADHD psychologist, speaker, YouTuber, and one of the creators of Mindful Hypnotherapy. So I specialize in empowering women and health professionals navigate their unique strengths and challenges with ADHD. And today we're going to be diving into some really incredible insights and practical tips for you so that you can start making a difference in your life, in your children's lives, especially with the chaos of transitioning from summer back to school. And be sure to watch all the way in to the end of this. So we have a lot of special gifts for you. And I'm here and honored to introduce our special guest, Dr. Ari Tuckman. He's a renowned ADHD expert and psychologist with over 25 years of experience. Ari, again, is a psychologist and an author of 4 books of adult ADHD, is an international speaker, and has truly dedicated his career to helping individuals with ADHD lead successful, fulfilling lives. Welcome.
It is great to hang out with you here. I'm glad that we can do this.
Yeah, I know that we could probably nerd out all day about ADHD and the blessings and curses of it. And this is a very timely topic as we are in full swing with summer to school. And just starting ourselves out here, let's start by just talking about the challenges of ADHD, especially when it comes to kids going back to school. What would you like to
Sure.
share with that?
Yeah, in general, the challenge for kids with ADHD is that they're not really on task. They're not really doing the thing that adults hope they would be doing in that moment, right? Now, obviously, that's kids overall. And as adults, we're not perfect either. But, kids with ADHD will struggle much more to be on task, on track, focused, planning ahead, thinking ahead. And as a result, the adults around them, and mostly I think we're talking here about parents, are going to have to be a bit more kind of hands-on, right? They're going to have to oversee a bit more, check a bit more, set things up a bit more. So, kids with ADHD, I mean, they're awesome, like all kids, right? Like all people, but they do require more effort on the part of the parents around them.
Very well put. And it is a chaotic time for the kiddos as well as the parents. What I found with my work is the scheduling difficulties are so hard. It goes from summer being light and free and fun to all of a sudden, ooh, we have to rearrange
Right.
carpooling and our work schedules. And any particular strategies or tips that are really helpful for parents to help with that task management and scheduling?
Yeah, I mean, that is the big thing, right? Like schedules completely flip around when we go from summer to school. And they may not be the same schedule as last year, right? If you change schools or you're doing some activity that, I don't know, like morning orchestra or something, right? What you used to do last year may not be the same thing. So it's a new experience, not just new from a few months ago, which, is difficult, I think, for all of us. But again, especially for these kids with ADHD, it can be more disruptive, right? It's harder to stay on the routine and to do the things that they need to do. So, the advice that I give is keep it as simple as you can in terms of what is expected in the morning, really kind of pick your battles. So, things like, do you have your books in your book bag? That's a must do. Things like, did you brush your teeth or comb your hair? Like, I'm going to be honest, like nobody died from not brushing their hair, right? And no one's teeth fell out in one day because they didn't brush their teeth. Obviously, it's important to brush your teeth, but also like some battles are more worth fighting than others. Um, so as much as we can streamline the morning routine, which honestly really means trying to shift some stuff into the evening where there's a little bit more time, so things like I did my homework doesn't mean I completed it. Now my stuff is scattered all over and I ran out to go do something better. But it means, things have been submitted online if that's what it takes. Things have been packed away, put into a book bag, where both of your shoes are, kind of things like that. So there's just less kind of panic and chaos in the morning because, school buses don't wait. Sadly, they just don't wait. And that is the most stressful situation for parents.
Oh, yes, because what you thought was, okay, Johnny's going to get on the school bus and then I'm going to go to work now turns to, whoa, how am I going to get my kid to school and then myself to work without,
Yeah,
the whole day unraveling. And
totally disruptive.
yeah, yeah. And a lot of stuff happens as far as a lot of getting back in the swing of school is challenging. You have to wake up earlier, which most people, young or old, don't like
Mhm.
anyway. And you bring up a great point of starting the night before is really the secret to success.
Yeah,
Anything that makes it easier so that you do less in the morning because my goodness, most people's brains are not on until like a good hour. And
yeah,
speaking of which, what's really helpful here is I'm so glad to see people are engaging in chat and want to have this be more interactive and engaging for the live chat as well as commenters here because we want to give you the best information and value for this too. So feel free to ask your
yeah.
questions here, go through them.
Please do. Yes.
Yeah. And
One of the things I kind of have this saying that often morning problems are night problems, right? Meaning if you didn't get stuff set up the night before, it's going to be a problem in the morning. If you got to bed too late, it's going to be a problem in the morning. In general, this is not true for everybody, but in general, folks with ADHD tend to run a bit later, right? They tend to be more night owls than morning larks or whatever. So, um, that makes it harder to wake up in the morning, right? And some of it is just not getting into bed on time. Some of it is being in bed but staring at the ceiling and not able to fall asleep, so not able to sort of calm oneself. So, creating a good routine, making sure people are getting into bed, lights out at a reasonable time, maybe using music or some mindfulness audio or relaxing, soundscapes or whatever to help sort of quiet the mind a bit at night. Um, Also, obviously, like no devices in the room. And this thing of like, oh, mom, I need my cell phone because that's my alarm clock is the biggest scam ever. Like, here's
right.
$7, buy an alarm clock. You do not need your phone for that, right? So,
Yes.
things like that, because as much as any of us might be tempted or distracted or lose track on our phones, kids with ADHD even more so, right? Like that is one of the things they get locked in and they just lose track of time. They're not being oppositional, they're just forgetful and distracted. So let's not put them into a situation that they're not going to handle well, right? So making sure that people are falling asleep on time, then being really clear about when people need to wake up. And by wake up, also what I mean is like feet on the ground moving.
Mhm.
Streamline again as much as you can. But I think it really helps to put like time markers at various points. So for example, you need to be out of your bed by 7:15. Scribble 7:15 on it with Sharpie on a post-it, right? You need to be in the bathroom and you need to be out of the bathroom then by 7:30. So 7:30, big thing, tape it on the mirror. Then you need to be dressed in your room, 7:35. Then you need to be down in the kitchen, right? And it sounds a little bit kind of crazy, but the thing is, folks with ADHD lose track of time. So in that big flow of 45 minutes in the morning, time kind of disappears and then you're scrambling at the end. So let's shrink down. Um, and depending on how your kid does, you can't just say, well, you're 12, you should be able to do this. Why do I have to come chase you? If the reality is they don't do it, right? Like the
Yeah.
proof in the pudding here, the track record is this doesn't work out. So being a little bit more involved earlier might reduce the sort of scrambling and the screaming at the end because none of us want to start our day like that.
Oh, no. And you bring up a great point too, Ari, that visual reminders are key with ADHD. It is kind of out of sight, out of mind. What is a habit to you may be completely foreign because getting to bed and even getting up is not just one task, it's several things. And
A
that
lot of
really,
things.
yeah, it taxes executive functioning, which that is the core of what ADHD is the challenge there. And
Right.
with that too, of just that calm reinforcement, not trying to fight. And you bring up a great point that the kids are not trying to be oppositional or make things different. They are really just trying to go about the life when they really don't have that time awareness or those habits really down pat.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing is, there's a reason why children live with us, right? Children in the wild would not survive, right? So even when they're 18, even when they're maybe 20 or a little bit older, right? Like they are with us because they need us to sort of guide them through. And part of it is as adults, we sort of see farther into the future, right? Like I can predict here at 7 p.m. if you haven't finished your homework yet, I know where the evening is going to end and I know where tomorrow morning is going to begin. Right now, that kid may not really be seeing it or feeling it, right? They're not thinking ahead, but we are, right? And that's kind of our job. And it's kind of, again, keeping them on task, picking those moments, not putting them into situations that they can't handle. So, my big advice is don't tell me what you can do, show me what you can do. If you're
Mm,
doing it, I don't need to be involved. If it's not working
right.
out, unfortunately, I do. So things like if you're getting your homework done, like mostly it's getting done and submitted. Maybe it's not perfect, but whatever, right? Mostly it's getting done. There's not a lot of tears and chaos. It's not taking you 6 hours to do an hour's worth of homework and you're losing sleep. Great, do what you're doing. On the other hand, if what I'm seeing is homework isn't being done by bedtime, um, things are not being submitted or they're being rushed and done poorly, then I think what we're doing isn't working. So maybe we need to talk about what's happening there. Like, is your cell phone getting in the way? Is the dog getting in the way? Do you need to be
Right.
down in the kitchen, not up in your room? Do we need to talk about when you do your homework? Like, and it's not punishment. It's about, I want you to be successful. I want this to work. And I don't want us to be griping at each other about it.
Right. You're a team, and you bring up a great point of really leading with compassion, leading with love, and encouraging autonomy and independence, whatever, stage of development they are, because that almost persistent drive for autonomy is a huge thing within ADHD. And also encouraging some fun, whether it is
Yeah.
a fun wind down routine or something fun that gets the dopamine kicking in the morning. And what I really encourage folks to do is truly connect with their child during this time, more so than usual, especially because there's going to be a lot of newness and novelty and change, which for ADHDers is really chaotic and overwhelming. So, intentionally connecting with your child to check in, like, hey, how are you actually feeling? I want to know. I don't want to punish you, and really treating like this transition as an exciting thing rather than the doom and gloom of, "Oh, no, I don't wanna go back to school."
Yeah. And it's hard because, like, as parents, it's stressful for us too, right? Our
Oh,
schedules
yeah.
get all thrown out of whack, and we're trying to figure out, like, wait, what's the new portal they're using and all that stuff. So,
Yeah.
so some of that is having compassion for yourself as well. But I think, especially as kids make these big transitions, right? Elementary into middle school into high school. Um, those for any kid is it's going to be a big deal, right? So let's try to make it exciting. Let's talk about the opportunities to come, not just, hey man, you need to do this and you got to stay on top of that and blah, blah, blah. But I think it's also like you mentioned development. And one of the most if you're the parent of a kid with ADHD, one of the most important things to know is that ADHD causes a delay of, let's say, 2 to 3 years in the development of what are called the executive functions. You can think of it as the life management skills, right? The ability to stay on task, to get things done, to manage the demands that are being placed upon them. So if this child with ADHD is 10, in some ways they're functioning a bit more like a 7 or 8 year old in terms of like navigating the demands of the day. Even if they're a genius and amazing in lots of other ways, when it comes to things like getting homework done, knowing that there even is homework, knowing where their stuff is, not leaving things at school or at soccer practice, being able to sort of get ready for dinner in a little bit or help out with chores, right? That 10-year-old is going to be more like a 7 or 8-year-old, or the 15-year-old is going to be more like a 12 or 13-year-old. So if you catch yourself saying she's 15, she should be able to what, like, I don't, apparently not, right? Like, again, don't tell me
Yeah.
what you can do, show me what you can do, right? So we
Right.
parent our kids based on what they can do well and what they can be successful. I'm all in favor of a bit of struggle and a bit of suffering, right? We don't want to overprotect our kids, but it needs to be something that is like within their abilities and within reach, and not another thing that they struggle with, not another thing that we need to like wrangle over.
Well said. And I'm loving these questions here too. And that's a great segue. That one great question is, what advice can you give to late diagnosed ADHD parents struggling with their kids' ADHD traits?
Yes, indeed. So, first of all, if you find one person in the family with ADHD, there's some pretty good odds there's somebody else in the family who also has it, right? Given what the
Oh,
genetics
yeah.
are, it's unlikely there is one, unless you're switched at birth or perhaps adopted, right? It's unlikely nobody else in the family has it. So, it's definitely a thing that most adults with ADHD have not been diagnosed with ADHD, right? Maybe anxiety or
Mhm.
depression or other things, but the ADHD has often been missed. And then when a kid gets diagnosed, one of the parents goes, "Huh, how about that? That sounds familiar," right? Um, so part of this might be that you and your child are going on the same journey at the same time, right? Ideally, you'd be
Mhm.
leading them as the parent, but that's not always the luxury we have. So I think it's to really educate yourself about this, right? I'm a big fan of not reinventing the wheel, right? Super
Oh,
smart
yeah.
people have come before you. Why do it the hard way? You know what? So yeah, get the resources where you can, whether it's, the course that I did or books or webinars, a local support group meeting, friends of yours who have ADHD or have kids with ADHD, like, do not go it alone. Um, and then, to sort of take those moments to be able to empathize with your child, to say, like, look, I get it. Like, I just did that same thing yesterday or this morning or 5 minutes ago, right? I understand it's hard. So
Yeah.
that you have that opportunity to connect. But it also becomes a thing that, as a parent, you need to kind of work on your part also to be more consistent and more effective, right? And don't put your own work last, because we're only as good a parent as we are as a person. I don't know, that might not be true,
Yeah.
but it's a good line. But
Yeah.
like, don't put yourself last. I'll stand on that one at least.
Right. And those are great pointers too, that it is so common of, okay, child gets diagnosed with ADHD and then the parent is like, whoa, a lot of these traits are very similar. So it is giving yourself grace and compassion, and as a way of this learning alongside and implementing these skills and validating and normalizing that, hey, it's hard to exist in a neurotypical world when you are neurodivergent. Your brains are just wired differently. And you may do different things in your household, which is most likely neurodivergent, than Karen down the street who is neurotypical. So do
Yeah,
what works for you and your family, even if it's a little bit weird or odd. If it works, keep at it.
definitely.
And I
And this
love this
is so,
comment too. Mhm. Oh, of like body doubling, that is a
yeah.
fantastic thing, and yes, go ahead, Ari.
Yeah, yeah. So body doubling, and just sort of sitting there with your kid, right? You're not helping them with their homework.
Mhm.
Let's say you're doing whatever you're doing, but just the presence of somebody sitting there tends to keep all of us a bit more honest and on track. So yeah, that's one of those interventions, right? You might have figured it out on your own. You just thought of it, but also other smart people have thought of these things. Um,
Mhm.
but to kind of go off of what you were just saying, I think as much as I am all in favor of doing better, right? Of like learning good strategies and really figuring out how to be more effective in the world. I think that's probably a good goal for all of us. Just as important as the change side of things is the acceptance side of things,
Yes.
meaning you don't have to be superhuman. You don't have to be all things to all people. You don't have to have no ADHD in order to live a good life, right? Some of it is there's lots of things I'm good at. There's some things I really have a hard time with. I'm still a good person. I can be okay here. I pick my battles. I recognize I bring good things to the things I do and the people in my life. And like, that's okay. Sometimes I'm going to blow it, So, kind of
Mhm.
same deal with your kids, and that includes things like sometimes they're going to be late, right? I don't love it, but like we can survive it. Sometimes they're going to forget a homework assignment, whatever. Unless they're teetering on failing and passing, who cares? Let it go. If otherwise things are going good, let it go. If, some evening it just doesn't, it ain't coming together, right? Like they're just not getting their stuff done. Maybe we just call it like, you know what? We tried, come back tomorrow, right? It's because I
Mhm.
think that that is a really important part. And I'm not saying obviously no punishment, no consequences, no expectations, right? That's a problem at the other end, but it's finding that right balance between the two.
Well said, especially as we are human, we're going to make mistakes. We probably have bad brain days left and right, but it
We
is,
all do.
yeah, yeah. And it's that aspect of counting your wins and connecting with your child and even reflecting on what is one win that you're proud of today. And that's a great way of connecting at the end of the day, which for a lot of ADHD kids, they spend most of the days ashamed or feeling like there's something wrong with them or they're not quite getting that, but really emphasizing, okay, what did go well? What are you doing? And that is really adding to your life. And it's always really sweet to share that with your child as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's sort of fostering a habit of noticing the positives because we don't have to work at noticing the negatives. Trust me, you'll notice them.
And
Right. But
unavoidable.
really being intentional about noticing the positives in ourselves and in what other people do. And so it might be something like, your kid didn't do well on that quiz, but you know what? They did take the time to sit down and try to study, right? So, like, that
Mhm.
was good, right? Like, normally sitting down to study tends to make things better. It didn't work out this time, whatever, but like, it was still a good thing, right? So, let's go at it next time. Maybe we need to adjust a little bit about what we did, but the fact is, you spent the time, and that's the good part.
Exactly. Of really encouraging that progression of learning rather than focusing on perfection or A pluses. Because my goodness, depending on what school your child is going to, it may not be as supportive for neurodivergence, but would really encourage getting some kind of accommodations with that and really focusing again on what is going well. How can we make it fun and exciting? And keeping them engaged. And we've shared a lot of great insight here and looking at everyone's comments too, really enjoying this as well. And you mentioned having a course, which is the perfect thing because we can talk all day about these tips and tricks and insights,
Yep.
but there's a difference between knowing things and doing things. So Ari has this wonderful course that you can get at the QR or use our link at the bottom pessylife.com/Liz Listens for this awesome, comprehensive ADHD parenting training for parents across the ages for ADHDers. And what is your favorite part about this course that you created?
You know, I really distill down everything that I've been thinking about and talking to clients about for 25 years. And I think the favorite part, honestly, is sort of the structure of it, right? It's 35 videos, most of them are 5 minutes, totally practical, actionable things. And it's that, right? It's really like, here is stuff I can do something with, targeting specific different sort of struggles, that families might have. So, I put a ton of time thinking about it. And like I said, really distilling down, here is what I hope everybody knows about parenting kids with ADHD.
Great. And what I love about it is that it's truly created for ADHD parents. They're really bite sized clips from 3 to 5 minutes, anything you can think of school wise to life wise with a kid or family with ADHD. And there's a lot of cool worksheets and handouts and printouts that, again, you don't have to reinvent the wheel, it's all right there. And we are having a super special summer deal. So your course is actually half off right now, which is an awesome deal. So it's perfect for this back to school swinging. And I'm just connecting some interventions here of body doubling. Hey, if your kid is sitting down for homework, you can do your own homework and learn more about how to support them in this process too.
Nice.
Yeah. And if anyone else needs additional support, making sleep fun and relaxation fun is my whole jam. So at my YouTube channel, Dr. Liz Listens, I have a new meditation for sleep that's inspired by the Legend of Zelda video game series. So hopefully can encourage some good sleep hygiene and sleep routines for fans young or old of the Zelda series. Great. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. This was so exciting. And thank you so much, Ari, for coming on here and nerding out about ADHD and anything else that you want to say to the audience.
Just keep learning, right? Keep learning, keep learning, keep learning, especially with kids, life evolves, it keeps changing. That keeps it interesting. That's good. But also just keep learning.
Yes. And I would say you're doing better than you think. Don't be so hard on yourself. Wonderful. Well, enjoy the start of the school year. I hope it is really great. Remember that we have these great deals for Ari's course and free meditations. So be sure to check it out and connect with us moving forward. Have a great day.